The word that really defines me as a teacher is relationships. When I'm in the classroom, I have to build very strong, solid relationships with my students. And I go about doing that by standing at the door and greeting each of my students by name when they come into the classroom. By doing this, I learn a lot of information about my students, what's important to them, and what really excites them. And once I get to know my students, that's when the real magic happens, when we can really begin a relationship where we're learning and we're pushing ourselves. And so that's what I think teaching is. It's about pushing students to their limits, knowing when to pull them, when to push them, because that's what my teachers did for me. And as a teacher, I want to pass that along. We've got to remember that our students today are going to be our leaders tomorrow. And so it's incumbent upon me to be a teacher that supports them and gives them a strong foundation. And that's one of the reasons why I teach.
From the courtroom to the classroom, very often we hear teachers who are wanting to get out of the teaching profession. My special guest, Ernie Lee, was looking to leave his career in law and get into the classroom. This former Teacher of the Year from Georgia shares what strategies have worked well for him and offers some motivation. You didn't start as teaching as your first career. You were a lawyer. So take us back into your story and how you got into the classroom.
I knew that when I was in high school that I wanted to be a teacher because the teachers that I knew were the ones that really wanted to be in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And so in my mind, I was going to go become a lawyer and make $1 million and then retire and then come back and teach. Of course, that did not happen. I went through college and law school and became a lawyer, and I'd been lawyering for probably about 20 years. And I'd taken a job at a college. I was kind of the corporate counsel for a college in Savannah, and I started teaching new employee orientation. And of course, I liked being in the school environment, and I really enjoyed teaching these classes. And so I decided that I really enjoyed doing this. It was funny because it was a time in my life where if I was going to make a change, it allowed me to make the change. So it was a really hard time because I had to file bankruptcy. I lost my house. I lost my car. My mother was diagnosed with cancer. And then I had to put my dog down. My dog was like 18. So over a span of about 18 months, it was like soul searching. Mm. And as a part of that soul searching process, I really thought, what have I done with my life? And I did good work as a lawyer. I enjoyed being in law, but I thought, really, what have you given back? And a good friend of mine who was an assistant principal, who had actually been a recruiter for the school system, challenged me. And she said, you've always talked about teaching school. What is holding you back? And actually, my plate was clear. Nothing was holding me back. And so she challenged me, and she said, Ernie, if you can go in and substitute teach and survive, you can be a teacher. So I went in, and my first substitute job was in kindergarten. And I knew after the first day that was not for me. And then I went into high school and absolutely fell in love with it. I could connect with the kids. And I'll tell you a quick story about one of the classes I had. It was a early childhood education class, and I knew nothing about early childhood education. But the teacher had left an excellent lesson plan, and it was mostly 10th grade girls. They were talking, but they were getting their work done, which is great. And as a substitute, that's a good day.
Absolutely.
And so one of the girls said, Mr. Lee, pay attention to me. And, I said, what? And she said, I have a song to rap about you. And I looked at her and I said, well, I've never had a song rapped about me. And so I said, well, yeah. So I quieted the class and said, let's hear this rap. And she went into this really funny rap about me wearing a bow tie and, me wearing glasses and having dark hair and being a sub. And it was really funny. And so I applauded her, and I got the class to applaud her. And then I said, okay, guys, look, I appreciate that. Never had a song rapped about me. But now let's get back to work because I'm going to get in trouble if you don't finish your work. And they did. It was a great day, and went home. And then about 2 weeks later, I was in the same school, and it was an English class this time, 10th grade, right, boys and girls. And The class was out of control, and I could not quiet them down to even call roll. And with a substitute, you have to call roll.
Yes.
Or you get in trouble. And I didn't know what to do. And Bryan, out of the back of the room came this booming voice that said, "Y'all sit down and shut up. Mr. Lee is trying to talk. I want to hear what he has to say." And believe it or not, the room got quiet. Everybody sat down. And then the voice said, "Go on, Mr. Lee. I got your back." And it was the girl that rapped the song about me.
Awesome.
And I couldn't believe it. But the more I thought about it is I really gave her some positive attention, and I respected her, and I let her do what she had to do, and I appreciated it. And then she saved me 2 weeks later. And I thought, I really can connect with some of these students. And I just had many stories like that happened. And I thought, I can really do this. So I went and applied, and I was hired under an alternative prep situation where I could get a temporary certificate and then go do my classes to get my renewables certificate. And I haven't ever looked back. I absolutely love what I'm doing.
Awesome. Ernie, did you face a lot of opposition from people in your life saying, you've got this impressive background, and why do you want to become a teacher and teach kids in a classroom?
Yes. And the hard thing was telling my parents, or telling my dad, because my mother was already gone by then. I talked to him about it, and he said, son, I just want you to be happy. But some of my lawyer friends look at me and they say, man, I wish I could do that. While I enjoyed being a lawyer, it's not everything it's cut out to be. They say, are you crazy? But then after I've been doing it now for a couple of years, and people see me and they see me really happy and always talking about it, I know I made the right decision, and I think they come along with it too.
What happens that first year?
A lot of what I did that first year was get to know my students, really see what they needed. But it was a tough battle because, first of all, I'm older. I was put with some younger teachers, like, who is this guy? What is he doing here? A lot of teachers aren't familiar with the co-teaching model and resented me being there. Mm-hmm. But again, my job was to kind of fight for my students and then get to know that other teacher and let them know, no, I can really help you. And so the first year was pretty tough. But then once people got to know me and knew that I was really sincere and that I did have a brain, I could do some stuff, then I was allowed to do a little bit more and a little bit more. The thing about, I guess, teaching is there's lots of discipline issues. There's, lots of paperwork, as we all know, that we have to do. But a lot of it was just kind of pacing myself, realizing what I'm doing. I keep thinking, okay, you could be back in the law office. And I'm thinking, oh, this is so much fun being in school, even with all the paperwork and stuff that we have to do. It was a tough first year, but a lot of what I did was meet people, build relationships, which I'm all about, getting to know my students, getting my students to trust me. And then we could try different things to get them up to speed. And, my first year was successful. The next year, it was kind of more of the same. And it just kind of started to roll from there. I got put with some excellent teachers that probably after my second year that really understood co-teaching. And then I was actually helping them lesson plan and present and just kind of took off from there. It was good. It was hard, but it was actually, I was having a lot of fun.
Read it out loud, yeah.
Welcome to Ernie Lee's International Baccalaureate History class.
McCarthyism. So talk to me. What you got?
These seniors are learning about the Cold War and McCarthyism. It's not an easy lesson, but Mr. Lee tries to make it real.
I try to bring it home to my students so they really understand that it's not something in a book, but it really happened to people.
This is a second career for Mr. Lee. He spent 20 years as an attorney, but he calls this his dream job.
It's so much fun to come into the schools and work with some kids that are excited about what they're doing.
Mr. Lee's students say they owe it all to their teacher.
He really enjoys and loves what he teaches.
Mr. Lee says he's trying to teach his kids to think beyond the classroom and get them ready for real life.
It's amazing the impact that I can have on a group of students.
And he says he wouldn't change a thing. Renee LaSalle, WJCL News, working for you.
Ernie Lee, our guest, being featured on a local news channel. And I want to go back, Ernie, to something you said earlier about getting students to trust you. How did you do that, and how did that impact your classroom?
One thing that I've learned, I knew this when I was practicing law, that when I had a client come in, I had to build up trust very quickly because, if you trust somebody, if you like somebody, you're going to work better with them. But the way I would build up trust is I would stand at the door before classes and greet each of the students as they're coming in by name. And it was like, hey, what's going on? How you doing? Are those new shoes? Those are really sharp. Or it's like, man, those are yellow shoes. Man, I could see you coming. And just kind of laugh with them. I'm not their friend, but I'm friendly. The kid's coming in and they look really sleepy. I'm going to say, did you not get enough sleep? What's going on? And I find out, well, they're working a job and they had to close the night before. And so, you just find out stuff about the students, if they're on a team, if they're in a club, and you kind of follow up with them. And it's like when students know that you care, then they kind of come around. This happened to me last year. I had a government class, and I had high-level international baccalaureate classes, which were 11th and 12th graders. And then this government class was really made up of kids 9th through 12th grade. I had a kid that should have been a 12th grader, but he was marked as a 9th grader because he didn't have a lot of credits. And he was always late for class. Mm-hmm. And he would come in 15 minutes late, disrupt the class. We would just get into these arguments. And this went on for like a week. And I said, something's got to change. And I realized I had to change my attitude towards this kid. One day I would stand in the hallway and greet the kids. And when the bell would sound, I'd check the halls and make sure if anybody was late, I wouldn't shut the door on them. And here this kid was coming down the hall, and I waited for him. And when he got to the door, I said, hey, man, you are almost on time. High five. And he kind of looked at me, and I said, man, I'm glad you're here. Come on in. I said, have you got your book? And he would start to make an excuse. And I said, no. I'm not getting on to you. I've got a book for you. Come on in. Let me get it for you. And so he came in. And then the next day, he was actually on time. And again, I gave him a high five and said, man, 2 days in a row, we're starting a trend. I am really glad you're here. I got your book for you. Got paper for you. Come on in. I mean, this is a kid who constantly roamed the halls. He would cut classes. And I just really started talking to him. One day I said, what are you going to do when you graduate? And he looked at me like I was crazy. And because I don't think anybody had ever asked him about graduation. And I said, no, I'm serious. My job is to get you to pass my class, and your job is to pass my class. And then I've got to do everything I can do to get you to graduate. And again, he looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, this is why I teach. I'm having a good life. And I want you to do the same thing. I said, I'm going to be in that audience cheering you when you walk across the stage to get your diploma. He just kind of smiled. And then everything changed in that class. I mean, he was on time. He was doing his work. He would cheat, and I would catch him. And I'd pull him aside and I'd say, look, you have fooled every teacher in this school but me. Right. I know you're smart. I know you can do this work. I said, when you copy somebody else's work, all you're doing is practicing your handwriting. And you know what, man? You've already got beautiful handwriting. You really did. And I said, go redo this and do it on your own and show me what you know. And he would. Then he would start helping me discipline the class. And it was funny. One day he said, y'all better chill out because Mr. Lee's getting that look. And I would say, thank you. I said, yes, I'm getting that look. This went on for 6 weeks. And the other part of the story is he had an electronic monitoring bracelet on his ankle, which means he was in trouble. Mm-hmm. And the school secretary would always call my class on Thursdays for him to come to the office to change the battery. And one reason she did that was she knew he'd be in my class. He didn't go to any other classes. So this went on, like I said, for 6 weeks. And then one day he wasn't there, which was not unusual because he might be on suspension. I checked the suspension list and he wasn't on it. And I checked the attendance list and he wasn't on that. And then I thought, okay, so I went and finished the day and then made some phone calls. And I found out he had gone off campus and robbed somebody with a gun. And so he was out and gone out of the system. But I tell that story because for 6 weeks, this kid chose to come to my class, and I had a connection with him. And what I see my job as a teacher is planting seeds. Wherever he is today, he knows that somebody cared about teaching him American government. And I don't know what's going to happen to him, but we had a connection. That is what I try to do with each of my students, because the squeaky wheel, or the guy or the girl that wants attention, is either going to get it positively or negatively. They're going to be a great student, or they're going to be acting out. And if I can get to know them, see what makes them tick, see what they need, and make that connection, then we're going to be able to have school. That's been very powerful for me to see that. I guess the biggest thing for me about being a teacher is making a connection and making it sincere. I mean, Bryan, I think you know that if you're fake to a class or to a kid, they're going to sniff it out very quickly. So a lot of what I try to be is I try to be very sincere. I don't ever talk down to the kids. I really have a lot of respect for them. We're not a Title I school, but we're like points away from it. And some of these kids have stories that would make my hair turn grayer than it is now. So it's like, I don't know where they're coming from, but during that time when they're with me, man, we're going to have some fun, and we're going to learn some stuff, and we're going to be respectful to each other. It's just about caring about kids. And I think that's why I started teaching, because we do make a difference every day.